Hello and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Andrew Turner for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard regiment, the Varustroyan 78th Siege Regiment. Absolutely fantastic paint scheme. Really like the clean look of those vehicles, that clean grey. And I also am very jealous of that Lord Solar Macarius model. I need to get my hands on one of those. Damn shame you can't find them for love nor money on eBay at the moment unless you're willing to sell a kidney or one of your children. But anyway, thanks for these pictures, Andrew. They look absolutely fantastic. You've done the Varustroyans proud. You've done the Praetorians proud. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page, or you can do what Andrew did and email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. And don't worry if you're an Ogun who hasn't had his bonehead surgery yet, I'll put a link to the Facebook page and my email address down in the description below so you can find them there. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So today guys, I want to do a quick after action report, a dispatch from the front line covering the games that I've been able to play this week, lessons learned from them. Now these videos cover games that I've both played not on battle reports, but also those that I've done on camera, which is a general roundup. Now today's episode, I'm just going to be covering the latest battle report, which was my hybrid guard versus the Adeptus Mechanicus. I did play in another game, which was my G-Still Occult versus a Valhallan Ice Warrior army, but that battle was also done as a battle report, and I don't want to do any spoilers obviously because that battle report won't be released until next week. But today we'll keep it short and sweet, and we'll go over what happened in the latest battle report and what can be learned from it. Now it goes without saying that this video is going to contain spoilers for that bat rep. So if you haven't seen it yet, go and check it out. There will be a link to that video at the end of this one, so skip right to the end and I'll put the link there and you can watch that and you can come back to this video. Right, without further ado, let's get into today's video. If you have any spoilers now, sadly it's your own fault, you haven't skipped and watched the battle report. Anyway, sounds very aggressive that. Anyway, let's get into the old video. So it was my hybrid Imperial Guard army versus Adeptus Mechanicus, and the Adeptus Mechanicus list is one that I've been talking about a lot in recent videos. It's that almost looks like an eclectic mix, but it's actually a really well put together list, and the commander knows what he's doing with it. And I'm glad that I finally got it on Battle Report because it did show off that it does have some real punch, and whilst it's not a traditional AdMech list, it really did have some teeth to it. So what my opponent ran, roughly, just going off the top of my head here, is he had Call. It was an entirely Mars army. He had Call, and he had 4 of the Dakabots. He had about 30 Skitarii in various 5 and 10 man squads, and he also had one of the planes in the shooting configuration, which I believe is the Stratoraptor. He had a Scorpius Destroyer with the thermite cannon, and one of the Onagadune crawlers, 3 plasma servitors, which I believe are the breachers. They're the ones that get the big D6 shot plasma cannons, and a unit of Ruststalkers for deploying the old scramblers, and a double smite inquisitor. There may have been and a tech priest dominus and a single taser chicken. Now in terms of analysis of my list, that list, I would say it's a very well put together list, very well understood, well piloted, and well worn. My opponent had a lot of reps in with that list. However, for those AdMech players who might stumble across the video, my opponent did say that he had a couple of things he would consider tweaking for that army. Number one, he doesn't really find he gets any use out of the lone chicken walker. It's a bit of a distraction kind of effect, but it dies every single game, and all it really does is run up to the enemy, create a bit of an issue, be a bit of a roadblock, but it's more of it's one of the models he's got and he likes it. It's one of the first models he ever had, but that's definitely not one of the efficient points. So that's from Sam, that's from my opponent. He also said that he is a little bit unsure on the Ruststalkers. Whilst they do a great job of getting him deploy scramblers, there's probably a cheaper way you could do it. But he does find that they are quite effective at getting him deploy scramblers. Of course, with the latest reveals from Games Workshop, deploy scramblers is going to change. Adeptus Mechanicus is going to change. So it could all be very different in the future. It could all be very different. But I have my sources close, you know, my Inquisition sources, my sources close to the old playtesters and the old Games Workshop, and my sources have told me, and this could be wrong, but my ear to the ground, my sources told me, is that AdMech, after everything is shifted and mixed up and moved around and left, right, up, down, once everything has been boiled down, they'll be about as powerful as they are now. Some things will move and become better, some things will move and become worse, but overall, they should stay about the same power. Now, we will see if that is the case and that pans out, but that's what I've been told in terms of what to expect for changes and how they're going to play. They'll be about as good as they were. They'll just be a bit different. They'll be different, but no more significantly powerful than before. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit for you there. Now, getting on to the Guard army, I ran a bit of a mix. I had 90 infantry with heavy and special weapons. I had a big block of Bullgrins, and I had 3 tank commanders and a Scion detachment. And my Scion detachment had 1 10-man squad, 1 5-man squad, and a Tempesta Prime. Now, straight away, I want to go through a couple of things. Firstly, that my list was not optimized, and well, very slightly. My list was very slightly not optimized. So I really wanted to run WYSIWYG. I've said this before on this channel that I would rather run a inferior but fully accurate army, nothing proxied, then run a better army but have to proxy anything. Whenever I see a battle report where someone's proxying something, even some of the big boys, some of the really big boys are big on proxying certain things, and I'm not a big fan of it, then I turn off. It's just me personally. So I will run a worse list if it means that at least every model is as WYSIWYG as it can be. Now, because of that, my my Scions were slightly inefficient. I took a 10-man squad and a 5-man squad rather than 3 5-man squads, so I missed out on a free plasma pistol. And I took a grenade launcher rather than a plasma gun. And again, that's because I didn't have that 4th classic metal Stormtrooper plasma gun painted up yet. So there's that. So that's just one thing to be aware of. Same thing, I have loads of officers painted up, but all my officers are painted up with like special power swords and stuff. So one of my officers did have a power sword. So I would say overall that I probably missed out on 5 points worth of free equipment in terms of plasma pistol, and probably took overall maybe about 20 points with the fluff upgrade. So that's just something to be aware of. There we go. Now, in terms of the outcome, obviously the Adeptus Mechanicus won, but it was a really close game. There was actually only 6 points in it, and so there's a couple of lessons to be learned from this. Firstly, whilst my Guard took an absolute beating, and the Adeptus Mechanicus list was still, but I'd say probably above half strength by the end of the game, I was still able to make that a very close game points-wise. And the reason for that was after turn 1, after I lost turn 1, and I made a slight but very significant mistake my turn 1. I realised that I was going to have to play it cagey, and there was very much a temptation to do as much damage as possible and to try and just go out in a blaze of glory. And I had to stop myself and be like, look, play it cagey. You know, you've only got 2 tank commanders left after that turn 1. You might be able to play out the long game here, and by doing that, that game could have easily been over turn 2 if I'd banzai charged out there. But because I played it cagey, I very much was able to keep the points very, very close. And at one point in the game, I was poised to win. And that turn 4, end turn 4, I was poised to win. Could have done very much could have done a snatch and grab, and it was only by Sam blocking me here and doing a few bits and playing well himself, and being in control of the board, that he did everything he should have done. He secured that victory. He did what he needed to secure the victory. But there was a chance if Sam had made just a couple of little mistakes, all it takes is a little bit of overconfidence, and I could have snatched that game. So it goes to show how close it was. Now, a couple of things to mention. Lessons learned. In this game, I was taking hybrid guard, and I took heavy bolters and auto cancel plasma guns on my infantry squad. I now think that is in hindsight, I think that was a waste of time. I think there's only really needs to be, you only really need to give your infantry upgrades if your infantry are going to be doing the heavy lifting. So if you are running a pure infantry army and the main source of your firepower has to come from your infantry, then you need to equip them well. You need las cannons, missile launchers, bolters, autocannons, plasma guns, melters. You need all those things for your infantry squads. You need to load your infantry squads up to kill things because they're the ones that are going to be doing the damage. In a hybrid list, you very much don't need to do that. I found my heavy bolters were a waste of time. I found my plasma guns didn't matter. I wish I had dropped all of the upgrades, which I had, which would have saved me about 100 points. And combine that if I taken 20 points more efficiency, like I spoke about at the beginning, I could squeeze in 2 extra infantry squads, and that would have been better for me. That would have been better for me because I noticed I would have got more obsec on the ground for no real loss of firepower because my special and heavy weapons didn't really do anything all game. Not in my infantry squads. So that's the first thing to be aware of. When you're taking hybrid guard, don't upgrade your infantry. Your infantry, they'll hold to objectives. Specialise your forces. Infantry hold objectives, and tanks and artillery will do the firepower. Now, that leads me on to the second point I want to make with my list, which was I didn't have enough. I didn't have any, but I didn't have. So by default, I didn't have enough landslide ignoring landslide ignoring weapons. The bulk of my firepower came from those 3 tank commanders, and what this list showed is that, quite frankly, 3 tank commanders isn't enough. That's why you need your 3 tank commanders and your 2 full payload manticores. Or that's why you need your 3 tank commanders, and if you go in Cajun, you go Pask, and if you take a cheeky destroying patrol, you make one of your tank commanders destroying and one of your Lieber Russes a pseudo tank commander with firstborn pride. Point is that turning up with 3 pieces of armour is not enough in a hybrid list. There's 2 ways you fix it. You either turn up with 3 tank commanders and 2 line of sight ignoring bozos, or you lead into it and you go for 3 tank commanders, Pask, and a pseudo tank commander. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. The thing is that my regiment trait was useful. Don't get me wrong, and I went for reroll random number of shots on my tanks and rapid fire 18 inches. If I had taken Talan in that game, whoo mama, I could have won it. Simple thing, I could have won it. Now obviously that's like tailoring your regiment trait to who you're facing. But that's not the point. I think with so much landslide blocking terrain being out there at the moment, and many armies not having a huge amount of landslide ignoring weapons, relying on pure maneuverability or firepower or just gun lining, if I gone to land, what would have happened is I could have moved my tanks out, popped at him, and then moved my tanks back. And I would have had much greater tactical flexibility. Much greater. So that's one thing to be aware of. Now I mentioned that I made a tactical mistake. I made a rules mistake at the beginning of the game with my Bullgrin. I misread the greater good stratagem Shield of Flesh. Shield of Flesh is 1 CP, and I thought you could use it on any unit behind the Bullgrin and they'd get -1 to hit, which is why I had my tank commander exposed but behind the Bullgrin, because one of my tank commanders, because I thought, you know what, it doesn't matter, I can slap a -1 to hit on him, he'll be fine. It's only for infantry. So I learned that the hard way, and I didn't do a take. Sam was like, do you want to take it back? We've not really done anything yet. I was like, nope, I'm not going to take it back. You've got to film mistakes, because if you don't film your mistakes, if you don't eat your mistakes, you don't wear them, you don't learn from them. So that's that. Another thing to say is I did throw the list together. You know, I will be fully transparent with my mistakes. I won't hide my mistakes. And one of the mistakes I made was before I even turned up to the battlefield. I threw my list together, and it completely just, because I'm a pure infantry commander, because infantry comes to my mind first, I didn't take advantage of tank cases. I didn't take advantage of them, and I should have done. I really, really should have done, because again, it would have made a big difference. It would have made a huge difference. Having reliable wound rolls, reducing damage potentially, yeah, it would have made a big difference. So learn from my mistakes. Do not forget your tank cases. They are basically mandatory, and do not make the mistake I made with Shield of Flesh, because it will not protect your tanks, which is a shame. But there we go. Now, I suppose the last lesson that I'd want to learn from this, and I just want to be clear, you know, there's probably a lot more that can be taken away from this, but just focusing on the main themes, the last thing I want to talk about is the Scions. Now, whilst the regular guard forces were suffering, this battle report was a really good showcase for the power behind Scions. I took Scions in a non-hyper efficient format. I took a 5-man squad and 10-man squad rather than 3 5-man squads, and I took a grenade launcher with a plasma gun. Even so, I was able to just show how good those Scions were. They came in and 16 Scions single-handedly cleared a flank, which that flank had a Dominus. It had a Chicken Walker, it had a plane, and it had 10 Scutari. And they cleared it all. They came in and they smashed the entire area. They killed anything that wasn't, that had more metal than flesh. And they just cleared a whole flank. And if it hadn't been for the fact that the rest of Sam's army was relatively intact, those Scions would have continued rampaging across that flank. And again, those Scions could have won me the game. So they were, the Scions were definitely the men of the match. And I hope it goes to show just how powerful they are. And I'm hoping soon to be able to use a non-proxy proper pure Scions army in my battle reports. I'm going to borrow it from a friend, use it as a channel army whilst he is away. He's actually deployed at the moment, and hopefully it's going to be really, really awesome, showing off the power of the Scions, because they really are very, very good. So that's everything, really. Let me know what you guys think. Those of you that saw the battle report or have gone and seen it and come back, let me know what you think. Any hints, tips, improvements, I'm fully open to. You guys know that I try and be very open about my mistakes, and I always like to learn from the wider community. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider heading on over to the Patreon page. There is a link down in the description below. I'm very transparent with all the Patreon money. It all gets reinvested back into the channel. I use it for things like terrain. I use it for the battle bunker, going to tournaments, getting new models for the army, for the channel, so I can do more bat reps. And before I forget, just a huge thank you to all my current Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. You guys know you're awesome, but you guys are awesome. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.